All right, everyone. Today we got the beautiful Mr. Tinmixer here, a wonderful vaporwave ambient artist here. And first off, just tell us what you're about and where you're from, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I currently reside in California. Um, I've lived here for like the past 15, 20 years, something like that. I forgot. But I am basically, I don't know if I would, how much I really fall under the vaporwave umbrella, but it's definitely an influence. It's definitely something I got into. And my personal music is just kind of like I've been doing music for a long time, but it's just until the last few years where I really got um, into it a lot more seriously and just thought about releasing records and trying to like establish a sound for myself. So and a lot of it kind of like has blended in with some of the more ambient vapor and stuff like that. And I figure it's a decent fit. So
Yeah, like I don't mean to pigeonhole you as vapor or vaporwave. It's just the fact
yeah,
that you were released on House of the Leg, so it kind of just and the way I found you was through like I probably like the vaporwave subreddit or something.
yeah.
But
So yeah.
anyway, if you don't mind, so how did you get interested in music generally? Like what started your path down learning about music and being obsessed with it?
Yeah, so it started way early when I was a kid. My parents are into all kinds of music. So just at home growing up, there's just tons of records my dad and my mom would play. Like there's like, pop, Beatles stuff, rock. They were really into classical and opera as well. Um, and then even some electronic stuff. So like my dad was into some weird like synthesizer music. So I got a pretty broad exposure to music growing up as a kid. And then I also played some instruments. I took piano lessons, and but my main instrument was the trombone actually. And I got into that and playing like in jazz bands and stuff like that for a long time. I mean, I haven't touched the trombone in a long time, but like it's pretty much listening to music, playing music. It was all pretty much ingrained from a young age.
Gotcha. And you don't mind
Yeah.
me asking, you've lived in California like your whole life?
No, no, actually, I grew up in Saudi Arabia.
And wow. Oh
So
wow.
yeah. I was born here in California, but my family moved there when I was young and to work over there. And it pretty much was kind of a very American community over there. So I was exposed to a lot of stuff, that kids here are exposed to and the culture here. And we'd make trips to the U.S. a lot to visit my grandparents and family and stuff. So, and then, I came back here pretty much, pretty much for college until now. So
So
I
you
love
lived
it.
in Saudi Arabia most of your life?
I'd say like up until like my late teens, maybe by 19 or so, I think we moved back. So,
Okay. So like
so yeah.
were like most of the kids you went to school with and such American?
Yeah, I'd say, well, yeah, I'd say the majority were American, but there was definitely other kids from other countries like Europe, England. There's a lot of like British kids and Canadians and then some other countries too, like Indians and Latin American countries. It was a pretty mixed group of people, but I guess it was mostly Americans, I would say.
All right. Well, I think that's awesome. Anyways, that's amazing. Would you say you had any like increased exposure to, I guess, other cultures through being in
Oh
that
yeah,
setting?
yeah, totally. I mean, we were just really lucky to have, a pretty good, um, I guess people don't really want to live in Saudi Arabia unless there's a really good reason, and the reason is, the companies that basically get American families to go work there is they give you a lot of benefits. They pay a little better than the same kind of job here. So we were blessed with having a lot of vacation, and my parents loved to travel to Europe and to the States and I've been yeah I've done my fair bit of traveling and just being there in Saudi, you get a more rich cultural experience than you know I don't know than a small town here in the U.S. I guess.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, no, I
it's
would
I
definitely
don't
say
know anyone
so.
else's experience but mine, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say I'm not as exposed to as many different things as you were. That I think that's amazing. How would you say that like plays into your music? Do you feel like your travels and certain stuff come out in your music?
Yeah, honestly, I really think it does. I'm very visual, and I'm very much about environment. So
I could
so
tell.
yeah, yeah. When and this is more just the past couple of years because I've been doing music for a long time, but not at the level that I'm at now, like in terms of creativity. So and prolificness. I try to do music like at least 5-6 days a week,
Oh, really?
and
Wow.
I'm just trying to like in a bit of a dry spell right now because I'm trying to finish up a new album, but generally I try to write a track one a week. So
Wow.
so it's kind of like but to go back to the environment thing, yeah, so I'm very visual, and then I kind of like picture landscapes, and I'm an outdoors person. I really like to hike, and I think a lot of the travel that I did and living in a desert environment was um, very influential, I think, because people think of the desert and they think it's like, oh, it's just boring, it's just sand and whatever. But um, when you go out there and you just see the sand dunes and just the desolation, but it's like it's so untouched by humans, right? So it's just I don't know. There's something magical about it. I
No,
mean, we used to
I
take
completely agree with
yeah,
you.
we used to take like family trips when I was like in the winter time because it was too hot any other time um, to like the desert, just like picnics and stuff. And so I get the real sense, of like the feeling of being in a certain place, the feelings you get like experiencing nature, whatever you want to say. I think that comes across a lot when I write music these days. Not everything, but definitely like, yeah, my first album that came out last year, Wayfarer, that was really all about imagining spaces somewhere else, something similar to here, but kind of augmented. It's all kind of like in my head.
No,
So
no, definitely. It's definitely one of my favorite albums that I like to listen to, especially when I'm out in nature. Like one time, like what me and my friends like to do sometimes, we like to just go ride out in the car and drive real far away from the city. And I've just
yeah,
turned this album on for everybody as we just sit by the river and chill because it's just, dude, like Unknown Shore just sounds so amazing. Just sitting by the river, listening to the water. I love that. So I
that's
totally get you.
great.
And
Yeah.
like you said earlier, you're very visual base, and I can kind of feel it through your music because you have a lot more of a, I guess the way to put it, you have more detailed ambience, if that makes sense. Like
Hmm.
I could hear the water, stuff like that. It paints a clearer picture than most other ambient music, I would say, and I like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, yeah, it's really a conscious decision, I guess, originally, the kind of idea where it's not just about, some artists will just paint, a soundscape with just, synthesized sounds or instruments or whatever like that. I've always been kind of drawn to, like field recordings and things like that. Actual sounds of the environment and kind of blending it. It's almost kind of like a cinematic thing. And a lot of the more ambient vapor or whatever, like I mean, even vaporwave is really sample based, right?
Yeah.
And if you think about artists like like Telepath, and 2814, it's kind of like they kind of saturate their music with other sounds, so kind of put you in that spot, and I think that's a kind of a big influence too. So I do like kind of mixing, ambient sounds, ambient environment sounds with my music. I think it kind of like puts you in a certain space.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also I just think the addition that there's not a lot of albums that necessarily take a nature as a theme necessarily. There's some like there's the Mesh and Telepath have a split where that's a large theme,
Oh
but
yeah, that's a fantastic album. I love
yeah,
that one.
but it's Path to the Garden of Lost Eden. That's what it is.
Right.
All right,
Yeah.
but your album strikes a very similar chord. I don't really feel like a lot of people go to because they mainly stick to the 80s or cyberpunk aesthetic, but I'm really glad that some people are willing to bridge out and go to this nature type theme just because I feel like it's a I don't know. It's just a lot prettier, and I identify with a lot more. Because I'm myself, I'm going to school to be a conservation biologist.
Oh wow.
So I really enjoy being in nature and that type of stuff. So I appreciate you being able to make an album like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like especially for that album, it's yeah, there's like you said, there's a lot of stuff like cyberpunk stuff. There's a lot of like city kind of feeling stuff. There's urban electronic music, all that stuff. And it's great, but it's like I don't know, I just felt like I like to explore this nature aspect. I mean, I'm sure it's been done to death in other places. I mean, there's just so much music out there, but
Yeah.
it's just I just got to make what resonates with me, right? And being out in nature and being kind of like in solitude and being in the open space of the world, I mean, we're humans on here. I mean, as much as we live in, cities and our lives have become really modern and urban, we're still like part of this earth in a way. And I don't know if it sounds really like new agey or whatever, but there's something there. There's some connection there, we
No,
always feel
I'm totally with you.
yeah. So
Gotcha. So, since like a lot, well, at least Wayfarer is like very nature based. Do you typically do the field recordings yourself, or did you find these samples from somewhere? I'm just curious.
yeah, so yeah, for Wayfair and a lot of my music, it's kind of like half and half. Actually, maybe. Well, I couldn't really say how much, but like some of the recordings are definitely my own. I mean, I've recorded stuff over the years, and then there's stuff even now. I kind of, if I hear an interesting sound or whatever, I try to capture it. I don't have really good recording equipment right now, other than just my iPhone. I had like a mini disc recorder a long time back, but yeah, I will use some of my own recordings, but also I will find some really nice recordings on the web somewhere and just I just kind of sample collect sometimes, and it's more like I just think of I need this kind of sound, and then I just go and try to find something either in my own recordings or something available online.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Before we go any further, may I ask what got you into music production? Like, what made you decide, hey, I need to make music? I think there's something for me to say here.
Yeah. So I think it was when pretty much around the time when I really got heavily into like enjoying electronic music. It's kind of like the early 2000s. I had been like, I think up to that point, I was kind of more into like I don't know, kind of standard band stuff. I had a metal spell for a while. And I don't know, like I hadn't really touched upon electronic too much, but then I discovered Warp Records because through like Aphex Twin and like Square Pusher and some of those guys, and I was just kind of like blown away that there's all this crazy like stuff and like really technical and then like really awesome ambient stuff. I just pretty much just like went crazy and just started buying tons of records and trying to explore all this stuff. And around that time, I realized, oh, you can actually do this on the computer. So yeah, because like the stuff, if you think about the early 90s, mid 90s, whatever, it's like a lot of it was harder to do, I think, because you had to have hardware and all that stuff. But when I discovered, oh, there's all these programs you can use. Like, so my first thing was like Fruity Loops, which is like now FL Studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like downloaded. I was like, all right, let me try this out. Downloaded it. I was like, this is awesome, and I was hooked. So that's pretty much the start of it. Now back then it was like I had a hard time finishing stuff. Like I'd have a lot of ideas, but I wouldn't finish stuff. And learning stuff is like it was really daunting, because I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I like to try to like learn about like whatever program I'm using, like front to back. And you don't with like the music making, it's not just about putting in, learning the software. It's like you got to think about mixing and like how it sounds and how do you like, use EQs and all this stuff. So it was pretty daunting, but over time I just kind of picked it up.
Gotcha. What kind of software do you use currently? Are you still on FL Studio? You've been exploring
Oh
like other
no,
stuff?
yeah. Actually, about half of the tracks on Wayfarer were from FL Studio, but I pretty much after I started that project, I just dove into Ableton because people said a lot of great things about it, and I liked the look of it. I had messed around with it a little bit, but I just said, okay, so I've got a MacBook, and FL Studio is not on Mac. So I was using another Windows machine to do FL Studio, but like my Mac was much nicer. So I was like, okay, this is a good chance to try out Ableton. And luckily it turned out it was awesome, and I just fell in love with it, and it's pretty much haven't turned back. I still have like project files in FL Studio, and I'm like one day I'm gonna like archive that stuff and like bounce a lot of the tracks on there. But yeah, Ableton is just the best for me. So
Gotcha.
I'm really happy with it.
No, I'm an Ableton user too. I'm not very good at it. I've tried to learn it. It's just like you said, it is a little daunting in the beginning. It's just Mr. Equip, who I interviewed the other day or yesterday.
Yeah.
He said that in software tutorials, like the help stuff, actually helps a lot. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, actually, well, I've always been a huge proponent of reading the manual. Okay, so I kind of have a technical background, like my day job, like computer stuff. So I've always focused on details and stuff like that, and I've always loved reading the user manuals for like whatever it is, like gadgets, electronics. Even video games, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would love reading the video game manuals. It's like sad they don't like make those anymore. But
So true.
yeah, I would definitely say the help files, that's like your first go-to. I mean, it's really nice to have YouTube videos and like tutorials on how to do stuff. But I think the problem with those things is that you might get pigeonholed into doing things a certain way that someone said is the way to do it,
I think
especially with music production.
Yeah, I
You
think
know.
that's probably what happened to me because I learned it. It was either through Udemy or one of those similar sites because my university
Yeah.
had given me an account, and
Yeah.
I think the course is really good. It's just the fact like, I'm not necessarily sure if this guy is actually teaching me everything I think I should, but I guess I
Yeah.
should go dive into it head first a little bit more. If you don't mind us backing up a little bit, earlier you said you went through a little metal phase. Now I've realized lots of ambient or vaporwave type people have been in the metal at least at some point in their life.
Oh yeah.
I listen to a lot of metal personally. I know the guy that runs Sun Bleach. He is also a very big metal fan, is a big
Oh
part of
wow.
the Reddit
Yeah.
metal community. And it seems interesting that everybody has had some sort of a metal phase.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that, honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I think it mostly has to do with the atmospherics of the music.
probably some intensity. I mean, I think if you're into metal, and I'm not just talking about like just really, popular stuff, but if you really get in there and you like your genres, your subgenres of metal or whatever, it's really aggressive. It can be really brutal. It can be really technical.
Hmm.
And I think if you kind of like that, I just feel like you have this ear probably more for, it kind of crosses over to electronic in general because you're kind of open to more. I don't know. I don't know if this makes any sense, but that's just what I kind of
No,
theorize.
I think that makes sense. I feel like
Yeah.
if you're open to like the most extreme aggressive grading type of music, you're probably more open to other types because you're able to experience emotion on a weirder scale. So obviously you're able to do
Oh
it.
yeah.
I guess that's the way I could explain it. I don't
Mhm.
know. So you say you like Ableton. Have you explored any other DAWs or any other ideas, or do you explore in the hardware sense at all or anything?
Yeah, so I actually messed around with Logic. It's another DAW from, it was on, I guess, well, I don't know if it was kind of a Mac thing. I think Apple
I
bought
think
it or
it
something.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think originally it was might have been both, but yeah, it's pretty much a Mac thing now. So I messed around with that some years back, and I think that's when I first got a MacBook because once again, FL Studio wasn't on the MacBook. So and I kind of just petered out. Like I couldn't really gel with it. Didn't really feel it was better than FL Studio at the time. Like I guess my workflow, it just didn't really inspire me.
Gotcha.
So, but other than that, DAWs, I think I messed around with Reason a long time ago. But it's like, yeah, as far as DAWs, I haven't really done anything else. As far as hardware, I do have some hardware synths. I have a Nord modular and um, oh yeah, my Electribe. I have an Electribe sampler, which is really fun.
Cool.
But generally, and I bought the Volcas because they're really cheap and really fun to mess around with. But generally, I don't use hardware too much in my music these days because really the thing is it's just getting the hardware stuff into the sequencer and recording it and or syncing it
Just a little
with
too
MIDI
much
or
of a
whatever.
hassle.
Yeah, it is a hassle. Like I remember I would have periods of time where I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna set up this cool hardware rig and I'm gonna just try writing a track on all this hardware, and then I'm gonna do all this and like put it in the computer and then, but it's like I spend more time trying to get it all working that the creativity just kind of left. Like I was
Gotcha.
just like, messing around with stuff too much and not focusing on like the actual creative workflow. So like I pretty much am mostly just software based right now, because of that. It's like the workflow. It's just a lot better if you
It's a
just don't
lot
have any technical
smoother.
problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha. Well, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of MIDI input do you use? Like any like
Oh,
MIDI keyboards
for
and
like
such?
keyboard. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just use my Nord modular. So it's like a small keyboard and it has a bunch of knobs on the front, and it's got its own like internal synthesis and stuff and its own editor, but you can use it just as a controller.
Okay,
So
okay. I
I
just didn't
haven't
know.
bothered to get anything newer because it's worked really well for me. I mean, the knobs are really nice because like there's like what I'm just sitting right in front. There's like 18 knobs here, so
Hey,
it's
there you go.
yeah, it works.
That's awesome. No, I'm
Yeah.
glad you have it. I'm trying to think. Do you own a label? Lots of people in the scene have some secret label somewhere. Are you one of those?
No, I don't run a label. It actually seems like a hell of a lot of work, um, to do that and to make music and to do whatever else you do as your day job or whatever. Um, I mean, I've thought about it sometimes, like if I were to start a label, but um, just what I see, it's like it's a pretty, I don't know. It's got to be a passion, I think. If you want to put stuff out on a label, because it seems like a lot of work. But yeah, I
Gotcha.
don't I don't have a label.
And also, do you have any like additional projects at all?
So I don't have, no, I actually don't have anything out there in the public sphere. Um, I don't know if I would say yet. I mean, I've considered other aliases and other stuff, but pretty much Tinmixer is my main project so far, that I actually finally released music under. So but the future, anything can happen. So
Gotcha, gotcha.
yeah.
All right. I hope you don't mind. We're gonna skip over. I want to talk about kind of how you start to formulate songs. What kind of things come to your head first? A lot of people say it could be anything. They could think of a melody or think of a drum or anything. What usually comes to mind when you're putting together a song?
So there's actually a few different ways that I start songs. So one thing is that, whenever I have an idea, that just pops in my head, that can be at any time, any place. I just write that down well, put it in my phone basically in a note. And so I have this huge list of ideas, and they're generally like ideas for songs or feelings that I had, or maybe there's like a song that I really liked and wanted to do kind of my own spin, or just try to figure out how this, to, or different genres. I mean, I just have this giant list of ideas. So a lot of times I'll just be like, okay, I want to just try to develop this idea and see what I can do. So I'll just like sit down and then, just get in the headspace of what I was thinking about that idea. And generally, it's just like a lot of times it'll be like a sample. Maybe I'll start with a sample or just a synth or something. Whatever vibe I had in that idea, and just go from there. It's really weird. Like it's hard to describe because it comes very naturally, and I don't know, like some, I have some friends who like would like to make more music and get more into that stuff, and they ask me, well, how do you sit down? How do you come up with ideas? Well, I don't know. You come up with the ideas, and then you just sit down, and then stuff happens.
See, I think that's the thing is I think a lot of people when they say they want to make music, I don't think they're completely comfortable with the environment they're in. Like you say, you've been learning how to make music for a long time. You know how to use FL, you know how to use Ableton. When you sit down, you're not hindered by your knowledge of the program. You can just sit down and
Yeah.
just go at it. Like it is just
Right.
your palette to paint.
Yeah, it's like an extension, basically. Like I mean, I know Ableton so well now that, and I have a certain way of working that it's just I don't have to think about that stuff, So the ideas, I can translate them a lot quicker.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What kind of VSTs do you like to use?
So I.
If you don't want to answer, that's fine. I know some people
No,
are
it's fine.
picky
It's
about.
fine. I'm not like super mysterious producer guy, So
Gotcha.
yeah. So I so for like so I kind of like half and half on samples and synths actually. So a lot of my synths actually are not necessarily like VSTs. They're just samples in sampler.
Oh,
So
okay.
an Ableton sampler. So like there's all these packs you can get, and like there's I guess I should say like I don't know if you know who Lego Welt is.
I don't actually. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so he's a really prolific electronic music producer. He's like done like hundreds of albums and like 100 aliases, Dutch guy, and he's got this huge synth collection, and he makes samples of like tons of his synths, and he just puts them up online for free. So if you go to his website,
Well,
you can just download
what's his name again?
Lego Welt.
Lego
LEGOWELT.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. This guy looks pretty cool. Look at this.
Yeah. His stuff is really good too. I mean, he does he does techno, ambient. He even has like some like I remember some albums like vaporware and stuff like that. So he's not really vaporwave, but he's
He
I
kind
don't know,
of
he's definitely
bridges the line a little bit.
kind of it's not too similar, but I don't know. He does great stuff, and his samples are great. Like there's just a ton of really good kind of vintage, analog synths, digital synths, percussion. It's just kind of crazy. So sometimes I'll just use samples of synths, and then I'll alter them. I'll loop them, I'll cut them, I'll distort, whatever. I'll affect them, but sometimes it's just samples of synths. So but other than that, like VSTs, I use some Native Instruments stuff. I really like this one synth called Razor. It's kind of based on Reactor, but it's like a standalone synth, so you don't need Reactor to run it. But it's got it's like a really digital kind of like really like crystalline sound, and that's a lot of that's on Wayfarer, and I really love that synth and how it sounds.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to go check that
Just
one out
kind
a
of
little
really
bit.
synthetic, like it's not really analog at all. But
Gotcha. What
but yeah,
what songs would you say like really show that off?
show that off. I'm going to be honest and say, let me think here. Um, I would say pretty much every track on Wayfarer
Really?
has
Okay.
that synth in it. A lot of the stuff I like to use it for are like kind of bell sounds and kind of like arpeggios and things like that.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah,
okay,
kind of the more
now.
crystally sounds. Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
All right. All right. Is there any other? Well, I guess you just said like you take samples, put them in the sampler. I think that's a fantastic way to go about it. I feel like that creates like a really original sound instead of just sticking
Yeah.
by like a few VSTs or something.
Yeah. Once you because I'm not against presets or anything like that. I mean, I use presets a lot and as starting points and stuff like that. But it's like when you get down to the sampler level, and I think using the Electribe kind of taught me that because it's just like a hardware sampler and it's very limited in how much memory it has, and you got to like turn knobs to like edit stuff, and like it kind of taught me like you can make a sound out of like the smallest snippet of audio. You can make a really sweet pad out of just this tiny little snippet of audio. And it's like with a sampler, you can do so much.
Yeah.
You don't need a fancy VST to make a really cool synth sound.
Yeah,
So
all you gotta do is just plug it in there and I guess just play away.
yeah.
All right. I'm curious. How long does it usually take you to come up with? You said you do about like a song a week or something. Is that what you said earlier? I'm
Yeah.
apologize.
When I'm really like kind of on and the ideas are flowing, it's usually about one song a week. I know it kind of slowed down the latter half of last year to like one every 2 weeks. I think it was because I've been working on this new album for a while, and it's been really like stuff is getting more complex and my projects are getting more unwieldy, and it's like I feel like I'm getting better with my workflow and my speed, but at the same time, I want things to be more complex, so it takes more time.
Gotcha.
So
So even
yeah,
though you're getting better, you're just painting an even bigger picture, I guess is the way you
yeah,
could put
yeah.
it.
It's like I'm trying to push myself. I'm trying to like either learn new styles or figure out kind of reverse engineer like how do people do this, or like one big thing for me is like bass, like especially sub bass. It's kind of hard to actually monitor that in my studio, which is basically my bedroom, because it's just like it's like an apartment, and it's not, I don't have like really fancy like sound dampening or anything like that or treatments.
Yeah, you can't
So
just be
you
bumping.
don't get, yeah, yeah, yeah. Plus it's an apartment, so you can't like play music too loud. But it's like sub bass has always been kind of a problem for me, and I've been really trying to tackle that, and the way I just do it is I'll play it in other places like my car, living room, with a subwoofer. It's like I just have to keep checking, and I always check against other people's stuff, and um, yeah. So I forgot how I got on this tangent, but
No, awesome. No, I think that's awesome. Cause like I have like a similar problem. Like I'm in an apartment, and although my computer speakers have a subwoofer, they will definitely start shaking stuff and getting people
yeah,
mad.
yeah.
So I obviously can't do that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I found that like a long while back when I was doing FL Studio stuff, when you have like a subwoofer, like just like a desktop computer, whatever, um, my bass would be too loud, or wait, too loud. Yeah, it'd be like too quiet because the bass is like actually more boomier than it really
I guess I'm not the
should be
only
in
one
the
that's noticed that. Every time I've used FL, it sounds like my bass is humongous compared to everything else.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like it's really easy to screw up the bass just because I think especially most like whatever bedroom producers, they just don't have their room like set up right to have really good bass. Um,
Is it just
I'm
harder
kind of,
to monitor that over headphones? I
yeah.
suppose so.
Oh, actually, you know what? I've gotten more into using headphones. Actually, headphones with bass is pretty good.
What kind of headphones do you use?
So I just use these old standbys like they're Sony MDR 7506.
Oh, those are good. I love those.
But yeah, yeah, they're just really rock solid, kind of not too pricey. Just I don't know, I've had these for such a long time, and then like the ear thing started falling off, so I got like replacement ear cups, but like they're still trucking. These are great.
No, gotcha. I'm
Um
pretty sure those are just
and
like the standard for neutral sounding broadcast type situations, or at least
yeah,
so I've heard.
I mean I couldn't say because I haven't sampled like all the different like headphones. Like that's part of it. I kind of don't want to get down too far down the audiophile route and be like um figuring out, okay, like this is just way better than what I have. It's like I feel like you should really try to mix and make music on what you have and just learn that really well because you're not going to have a big studio, you're not going to have like a really fancy mixing whatever and all the treatments, and so you kind of got to make do with what you have, but
Yeah.
you kind of learn the ins and outs of like your speakers and their flaws and your headphones and whatever, and then I think you can still make great stuff, great sounding
No, I
stuff.
feel like that's actually a great point to make because you're more attuned to how your speakers and the sound that you hear. Because I always find that whenever I borrow people's headphones or I'm in somebody else's car, I'm like, wow, the music sounds so much different than it does in my car or
Yeah, yeah,
my
because you get so
headphones.
used to it. I feel like the car is the best place, honestly. Like if you drive a lot, I mean, I used to have like an hour-long commute one way. This is many years ago, and so I would listen to just music, just albums and albums and albums. I got so familiar with the speakers in my car, like I just knew like if something sounded good there, it would sound good anywhere.
Yeah, that's a wow. I feel
So
like it's an amazing point to make because I've always
yeah,
felt kind of similar to that because I'm like, man, I wish I could make it as best as sound amazing on everything, but at the same time, it's like,
yeah,
well, I know my headphones better than anybody else knows my headphones, so I could
right.
probably narrow down what my music needs. Um, yeah, that's. I feel like that's a. I'm like surprised that somebody has that outlook because not a lot of artists do, honestly. I don't
Yeah,
think, anyways. Anyway.
yeah, it's like seriously, if it doesn't sound good in my car, then something's wrong. Like I check my mixes in the car, like that's my thing. Like if I worked on something late, it's like the next day I'll just sleep on it and then like lunchtime or something, go for a drive and just like listen to my latest stuff. And but it's kind of like you also have to make sure you listen to really good professionally produced mastered records also. So you kind of what like the really good stuff sounds like in your
Yeah,
car and your
totally.
headphones, just
Uh,
so you can compare.
if you don't mind me asking, what car do you drive, or do you have like
Uh,
custom speakers or anything in your
oh
car?
no, no, no. I just have a Mazda. I just have a Mazda 3 and like just have the stock. There's like a stock Bose system. I'm not a huge fan of Bose, but like
They're in
I
lots of cars and
consider
stuff.
yeah, yeah. So my last car, I really got used to the speakers. This one I bought like 2 years ago. And so it was a little bit weird like getting used to the new speakers, but and I considered buying like an audiophile system or like buying a really nice car speaker system, but I was like, you know, I don't know how much that's gonna really like improve. It's like you can be happy with less. That's like where I feel like I'm going as I'm getting older. Like you can just be happier with less. So like
It's a good outlook to
yes, I
have.
could get the fancy. Yeah, I could get the fancy whatever, and I'll get used to that, right? And then stuff under that may sound worse or whatever, or like, but like if I have this and it's fine, then what's the problem,
Yeah, no, I totally got you. See, my,
So,
my first car had like two working speakers, and all the other ones flapped around because they were busted. So
oh
everything
yeah,
after that for me was an upgrade. Because now I just drive I drive a Honda Accord, and I think even though it's just stock Honda speakers, I think they sound beautiful. I think they're amazing.
cool, cool.
Yep. Um, Now I have a question thing to go back earlier actually because I've been thinking about this for a while. Is there any like very specific inspiration you had for some songs on Wayfarer, or any locations that you had visited that really came out in certain songs?
Yeah, so yeah, I can think of one track in particular, Bloom. That one was actually inspired by my dad's cabin. Like he lives kind of like up northern California, like pretty much it's a really small community. It's like near this national park that has like a volcano like mountain range, and it's just really I just love visiting there and just being like in the forest and just like sitting on their porch and like I get really inspired going walks there and just sitting there and like that that song Bloom, like the ambient sound in that is pretty much I just sat there out there in on the patio and just like recorded on my MacBook the sound
Wow,
around.
that's
That was
awesome.
the
That's one of my
start of
favorite songs on the record.
yeah, yeah. So I just yeah, it just came from that and I started working on the song there. I was just really inspired and that's just how it came together. Um let's see.
Is there any
Yeah,
other? Hold on, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, yeah. So bioluminescent cave as well. That started on my dad's front porch. You know, um, like I don't remember exactly how I came up with that, but it's like I remember one element in that song is that there's this kind of weird bell sounding kind of thing, and it's like the track I was working on, I had headphones on, and there's like this kind of wind chimes that my dad has like hanging
Mm-hmm.
on the porch, and they were like I was hearing them through the headphones like very faintly. So it's just like I thought, oh, that sounds awesome. So I brought in some kind of this wind chimey. I mean, I altered it a bit, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. I just remember that it's just sitting there on the porch and
No, I think
just being in the moment,
that's awesome. I love that. For me, when I hear bioluminescent cave, I really it feels like, yeah, I'm just sitting in a bioluminescent cave. But those little bell sounds, it's like I can feel like the water droplets falling off the rocks and stuff. I'm
Right.
like, wow, it's just very nice and pretty. It really paints a nice
Yeah.
picture, in my opinion. Really, really beautiful stuff. Um, is there any other tracks that you feel like you would love to shout out and talk more about? I always love Unknown Shore. For some reason, is probably my favorite song off it. I mean, I love
Cool.
everything off of it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it sounds like it's got a very I don't know. For some reason, whenever I hear it, I think very Pacific Northwest type sound.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that one is just like it's just kind of like I just had this this just image of just like kind of like waking up and I don't know if it was a dream or it's kind of like Wayfarer is kind of like it's like you're maybe in another planet or maybe it's a dream place or something like that, but it's like that kind of just waking up and you hear the water lapping on the shore and you realize where you are and it's just like kind of a beautiful moment. It's kind of like a sunrise kind of thing, because like I feel like I come back to that at the very end, the last track. I kind of
Yes,
return to that.
yes, I
So it's like,
noticed that motif, and I was like,
yeah,
oh yes, this is so beautiful.
yeah. So I mean that was kind of thing. I had the bookends, right? So, you know, so yeah, it's just like I don't remember exactly, how these tracks started, but it's like, yeah,
They
it's
just
just
kind
kind
of
of like,
grew up from the moment. Honestly, from the feeling that you
yeah, it's
had at
just
the
kind of like
moment.
a visual, kind of like a being in a certain place, and just visualizing it. And there's kind of like throughout the albums, kind of like there's this metallic. I think it's kind of through that Razor synth I was talking about, but like this kind of synthetic kind of, and that's maybe more the alien vibe. It's a little unusual. It's not necessarily like here on Earth or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's not really overt.
Hmm.
So
It definitely makes me feel like I'm in a different place, and I like that.
yeah,
It really takes me away from being in the middle of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, on a college campus.
yeah, yeah,
I feel
that's
like
great.
I'm definitely transported somewhere for
I
sure.
mean, yeah, if I can transport people, like that's just, I'm just really happy. Like if I can just, you know, you can connect with it emotionally in some way, that's great.
Definitely, man.
I have a
Definitely.
response.
I have another question. Where did the album art come from for the album?
So that was basically put together. So, I worked with Modcom. He runs House of the Leg.
Oh, I did
And
not know that he ran that. That's awesome.
oh, really? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he keeps it on the down low now, but yeah, he runs it, and I mean, hopefully he doesn't mind me saying that. I think it's not a secret or anything, but he was asking me like, for my ideas, like what I had in mind for art and stuff. So he helped a lot. I mean, he did basically the design and the layout, but I supplied him with like photography, a lot of photography. So the basically, all the pictures on that. I don't know if you have the tape, but there's stuff on the inside as
I'm
well
gonna
and on
get
the
it when I
back.
get my paycheck tomorrow. Actually.
Okay, cool, awesome. Yeah, so there's some more art there, but basically it's just kind of composited different photos of from myself, and then some from a good friend of mine. He's a photographer, and they're just kind of like it's kind of like a non-specific place. I wanted it to keep it kind of ambiguous, not this is kind of could be another planet, could be something, it's just um
No, I got you.
the sky shot and stuff
I
like that.
totally
So
get that vibe. You're really trying to make it be like, hey, you're just somewhere else. That not important
yeah,
where, you're just somewhere else.
yeah.
No, gotcha. Um, Now as far as after album art, how's the process of actually getting something released? How did you reach out and get this to happen? If you don't mind me asking.
So yeah. So I've kind of like, I've made a lot of music over the years, and but I haven't actually put anything out, other than just for friends and stuff. And it's just like always been kind of the thing. Well, yeah, I'd love to release an actual album. And I didn't until, a couple years ago was like, okay, I'm really inspired. Like, and I have this idea for this album. That's great. And I'm going to try to do that. And the same with like what I'm working on now. It's like, it's just like an idea I had that just has kind of come together in the album format. I really like the album format. It's kind of dying off, I feel like, in like popular music, with Spotify and streaming and all that.
Yep.
People just listen to their favorite songs or whatever, or their favorite playlist. But I love the album format. You listen to it from start to finish. I like concept albums. I'm not ashamed to say that.
No, I think concept albums are also one of my faves. I'm here with
you. Yeah. So, for a long time, I didn't, I would make music and make tracks, but I didn't really have any idea for like a release, right? Until, a few years ago. So with this, like, I was actually considering releasing an EP, just self-publishing, whatever. But, kind of on a whim, I just saw that, House of the Legs had started up, and they just had put out that Chungking Mansions release. That was their first release. Wild Guide to Anywhere, I think it was. I don't know if you heard that one, but
I might not have, but he's definitely a fantastic artist. I do love his work.
Yeah, you should check that out. It's really good. It's kind of like sample based, but it's kind of naturey as well. That's the interesting thing. So yeah, I heard this. I thought this is awesome, and like I had known Modcom a little bit through a little bit on Twitter, and I really like his music and respected him, and so it was like, oh yeah, we're send us some demos because we want to put something out in May. And I was like, oh, what have I got to lose? Just like I have this EP, might as well just send it. I was gonna release it myself, but sure, I'll send it. And he really loved it, and he actually wanted it to be like, he wanted me to add a few more tracks to make it like a full tape. So yeah, the original Wayfarer was only 5 tracks, and that's how I sent it to him. And it was kind of demo, like they were pretty much mostly finished, but like, it was still kind of a demo. So
still needed a little bit of polishing.
Yeah. So he was like, yeah, we if you add a few tracks, we could just put out an album and I could put it on tape. And I thought, oh, this sounds like a great idea. I was just really happy that he really loved it and he wanted to put it out. So yeah, I did write a couple new tracks. There's, I think, maybe 2 tracks that weren't really related to the project, but like I realized they fit really well. And I kind of went back and just did another pass through everything else because I'm just really anal about being really making sure everything sounds right and perfect. I don't know.
No, I mean that's a good idea to have. That's a good thought.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes people were like, "Oh, you shouldn't think too much about it. You should just be really raw, and just kind of like not worry about the details." But like that's just kind of goes against the kind of person I am. So I'm really detail oriented. So it's like I just kind of wanted to make a cohesive sound to this album. So I kind of made another pass through it all and just like realized, okay, I actually would prefer if I had this, or and it's something I'm struggling with my current album because like I've actually been working on this I started this album that I'm working on now like when I was working on Wayfarer, so it was something that like I've been working on and off for a long time, and it's just like I just have to like I'm not satisfied. It's like, okay, that's good, but couldn't it be better? And I'll go back and rework stuff, or I'll throw whole parts away, or maybe just dump a track. I'm not at the point where like I can just like start the album from scratch, just like. But I definitely went back and reworked a lot and changed the stuff around. Yeah,
gotcha.
When he basically wanted to release it, so.
All right, that's dope. What kind of, if you don't mind me asking, I understand that you're still working on this album, but what kind of the themes do you want to approach? What kind of ideas do you want to explore if you want to share?
Oh, like in general, or like with the next album that I'm working on?
Just for the next album. It could be in general too. Just like what are some things that you feel like that you want to have a say in, I guess.
Yeah, so well, the next, I honestly don't want to talk too much about the new album because I want to finish it and try to get it out there, and then people can kind of make their own opinion on it. but I guess with the new album, it's actually moving slightly away from just the ambient stuff. So it's actually part of my idea for this album was to kind of explore other genres or subgenres of electronic music or vapor or whatever. Um, so it's not just ambience, you know. There's actual percussion in their beats or whatever, you know, in some of the tracks. So it's kind of like a blending of multiple styles and stuff like that. And it's basically see if I could make something that's cohesive but still kind of different.
Gotcha.
So I don't know if that makes
Just
sense.
to challenge you as an artist, just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
push
yeah.
yourself a little bit further and explore. No,
Yeah,
I
and it's the
totally
most,
got you.
yeah, it's the most involved and the most detailed tracks I've done, and that's why it's just taken so long. So, but I think I'm really close. I think definitely by the end of this month. I keep saying that. Like I mentioned to some people, like, yeah, I think, yeah, I'm in ending stages. Okay, I'll be like just maybe another 2 weeks. But I'm like horrible at estimating, like time estimation in general. I'm just really bad. So, um, and then life can get in the way, or like I had to move, and that really screwed things up. But but yeah, I think the new stuff is gonna be different. I'm hoping people will still enjoy it. People who like Wayfarer can still enjoy it, because that's one thing. Sometimes when artists, they'll make albums and maybe they're a little different, or maybe a little different style than what they're known for. They kind of lose people because, like, well, I wanted you to make that album over and over again, And
Hmm.
I think it's in vaporwave too. People really get stuck on a certain sound or a certain thing that an artist does, and they just want to hear that over and over and over.
Yeah,
And
no,
I don't have a problem with that.
yeah. I mean, I could sort of understand it because, like, the Gateway Project. It's like a guy who basically just does the classic telepath sound, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I've heard
and
of
like,
that
I
guy.
mean, I understand it, but at the same time, I'm here more for the artists. I'm here to hear what other people have to say and what they want to share. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that you're so detail oriented about that and want to be creative.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, part of me is like a little bit nervous, a little bit shy about putting out stuff that's kind of more in your face. Um, and then, I have, the self-doubt, I think every artist has, it's like, oh, is this actually good? I've worked on it for so long that, it's almost 2 years actually since I started this one. And I've worked on it for so long, and it's like I don't have any objective viewpoint on it anymore. Like I've heard these songs like hundreds of times, and it's just like at this point I just need to finish it, and just put it out, because I have no objective viewpoint whatsoever on it. I mean, I just hope people like it, and you know
Hey, I mean,
that's the
do
best I can do.
do what you like first, and then if people
Yeah.
like it, so that's my opinion. I was like,
Oh,
do what
definitely.
makes you happy first, and then release it. And if people like it, so what? Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you're the one that's built this sculpture from the ground up, and you know what has went into it and the different details and such. Because like even like different albums that people listen to, like even like this one that I listen to. I've listened to this album so many times. My opinion is tainted. I don't want to write a music review of this album because I've listened
Sure.
to it 50 times. It's just going to be just
Wow.
my thoughts I've had on it, ever so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not very objective, and I don't really think it has to be objective necessarily. I just feel like
No, absolutely.
you just need to go at it with what you got.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's art, right? It's like everyone has their own reaction to it, right? So I really enjoy artists that are really, um, I don't know if honest is the word, but it's just like you can just tell, they poured their heart and soul into this, and this is what they do. And it's like you can kind of tell, you can kind of hear music that's kind of like, well, this is kind of manufactured, either for sales or to be, a certain style, or to, I don't know, cash in is a word, but like
To sell
to be
out.
more popular, whatever. Yeah, sell out. Sure, sell out. Whatever. You can kind of sense that, and like I mean, that's part of like I was really drawn to the scene, vaporwave and vapor or whatever. Is like you can just hear like a lot of the stuff. It's just artists putting their stuff out, putting out their heart and soul.
No, definitely. I definitely agree, and I could definitely hear it through your stuff. Like I know this has been like a slightly kind of a formal interview, but like I'll just be honest. Like I really do adore your album, and I feel like it is very unique, yeah, within the vaporwave scene, and also with just in ambient music and music as a whole. I really truly feel like it's got a different voice from the rest, and you can definitely tell.
That's great. That really makes me happy. Because like, what is the point of putting out stuff, right? Like for people to listen to it, right?
Hmm.
And if people come back and like you and they say, I love this, I listened to it 50 times, it's like it kind of blows my mind. It's like because I have this kind of different viewpoint of my own music, that's a little, I'm like, okay, I think it's good. I think it did a good job, you know, and it's like, but I think I belittle myself too much, sometimes,
Yeah, I feel like
the self-doubt, right?
yeah, it's hard to imagine, even for myself. It's hard for me to like think about this, and I have to like I focus on it really hard. Is that all the music that people listen to? I never get to see the moments when people just put in their earbuds alone or go driving alone, and they're just having a bad day, and that's what they get to hear. Like no,
Right.
nobody gets to see their fans in that moment, and
Right, that's true.
and I think that's kind of the reason why people do get nervous and self doubt because they don't know what their music necessarily means. But I could for sure tell you that you've definitely been there for my late night crusades and such.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you you like it so much, you decided to interview me. That's great. I'm just
Yeah,
really happy.
yeah.
There's people out there who love it.
Yeah, I mean, and this is just this interview stuff is just a passion project of mine. I wasn't even sure if I was even going to get this radio show because I've already been denied the show a few
Oh
times.
wow.
But they allowed me to get it, and then I was just like, hey, can I do interviews? And they were like, not on air. I'm like, well, can I just do it? And they were like, sure. And then
Awesome.
I just started going at it. So here we are now.
That's great. Yeah.
And hopefully this is along with you and then other artists like I interviewed Equip if you know of him.
Yeah, I actually saw. Yeah, I saw your tweet. Yeah, and I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, I interviewed him. Ours went really, really long, probably longer than it should have. Hopefully, ours is not as long because I am a little busy. But it's this is just a service I want to bring to the community, to the show that, like I just said earlier, like these types of moments where we could see fans really express this. I really want to be able for fans of say your music or anybody who's interviewed music to be able to see a bit more personal side and really
Yeah.
show just kind of connect a little bit more because I feel like everybody kind of needs that a little bit. The way music is
Yeah.
nowadays is just so we are all so separated from the artist because to be honest, the majority of the music I've discovered has just been through either a Spotify Discover Weekly playlist or Reddit or something, and I've never
Yeah.
known of these people otherwise unless I went on social media and like
Right.
forcefully went and talked to them.
Right. Right. Yeah, but it's really funny. Like you're saying, it's hard to. It's everyone's kind of disconnected. Like even though we have the social media, it's like it's ironic that we seem to be more connected, but somehow we're separated more. I don't know. It's like this thing I see with social media, like because it's like everyone's persona, right? It's like everyone's what they want to put forth to the world, and sometimes I have an issue with like my Twitter and stuff. Like sometimes I don't tweet for days at a time. It's like I don't know. Do I have to like say stuff or like witty stuff or like cultivate an audience? It's like, but I don't really care about that, right? I'm just gonna do what I'm gonna do.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so, but it's like I'm totally. I don't know if I come off as not unapproachable. Like I totally don't mind. People like DMing me or asking me questions or like, you know, yeah. It's like I
Well,
think sometimes maybe you have a certain perception of an artist and you're just kind of like maybe shy or whatever, just like okay, I don't know if they'll notice me or whatever, but
yeah,
it's like I feel like social media should allow you to be able to talk to
yeah.
anyone really.
I also think it also it's kind of affected by the kind of the vapor community's mindset of anonymity because a lot of people
Oh yeah,
prefer
yeah,
that
totally.
and like
Yeah.
I mean I understand it. It's been a part of the genre for a long time but me and Equip were talking about this idea earlier and I want to hear your opinion on it. Is like this it's like it's almost as if people are afraid to admit themselves as a fan of this type of music. And like, I'll admit it, I have been too. Like, I don't want to be labeled the weird guy for the music I listen to,
Mhm.
which is like, and now I don't care. Of course, I'm gonna listen to whatever I want, but I feel like a lot of people, there's like, it's almost a hassle to be a bit personal about it.
Mhm.
It's just there's just some divide, or they're blocked there where it's hard to be personal about it. It's hard to share stuff about it. And I don't know if it's necessarily due to the anonymous stuff. I don't know if it's necessarily due to just people just not wanting to share. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the anonymous nature of it is interesting. I think it's especially with vaporwave because a lot of that classic vaporwave whatever is like is very blatant sampling, of like songs and just wholesale. Some of the tracks are just slowed down songs, So
Yeah.
so I think part of that is maybe, people don't want to put themselves out too far, just keep it really under the radar. Um, it could just be kind of like a mysterious like electronic producer, like I don't know. It's really interesting that the scene people tend to be more anonymous. I mean myself as well. I don't put out my, I don't have my real name out there, and I kind of don't want to because, I kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to cross that bridge yet.
No,
But,
I mean, yeah, I mean, no,
but
for sure, for sure. Because like even I felt that way when I've been making this show and like getting my YouTube account set up. I'm like, man, like there's lots of stuff that I guess it's just because of this music and the culture of it. I just don't feel comfortable leaving all the information out there. I feel like it should be kept at what the show's called and my DJ name or artist name or whatever, and it should be kept at
yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, it's so easy to find out like once you know certain details of a person, it's just like it's all there on the internet then, So so I don't know, maybe anonymity is kind of like related to just how easy it is to once you have information about someone, it just like it'll never go away, like Facebook, for example, right? They have so much information on you. So so yeah, I don't know. That's interesting.
Uh, I'm curious. Would you ever? I know a lot of ambient and vapor albums. They don't really attack any like political viewpoints, but would you ever be interested in trying that? I'm just curious. Is that a
Oh, like
theme?
in my music?
Yeah, is that ever a theme that you would like to explore?
Um, honestly, not really.
All right, that's
I
cool.
think yeah, I think I mean there's lots of music that I like that's more political. But I kind of feel like my stuff it's more it's more about kind of the human experience, kind of like like the environmental thing I was saying, nature, kind of like being in a certain place. It's more like,
No,
yeah, politics just doesn't feel like something that enters my mind at all when
no
I
that
write stuff,
no. I'm glad you're of that opinion.
It's almost like a break, it's like a break sometimes,
Yeah.
because
That no, I
yeah.
completely agree because politics hurts my brain. Every time I have to look at the news, I'm like, gosh darn it,
Yeah, it's
just
it's it's
why?
really it's really gotten really messy, like
Yeah,
and especially with people on the internet arguing and just people being very outspoken, right? Because of social media, like everyone compared their opinion, and um, yeah, it's nice to take a break from that, honestly. Like I don't really follow like yeah my Tinmixer account on Twitter. I just really like I used to follow like more political stuff, but I just pretty much unfollow that stuff because it's my music account. I just want to focus on that.
yeah, exactly. Like
So
I've reduced my Twitter
just filter it
account
out.
to just like video game type stuff and artist. Like
Yeah,
that's just what I want when I go out. Um,
yeah.
Now I want to skip a little bit. I'm curious because you say nature is such a big theme and you are about the environment, as I am too. I think it's something that needs to be explored more and something I wish I could personally do too.
Oh, really?
Are you a fan of transcendentalism type literature and stuff like that?
Transcendentalism. Can you give me an example?
Mr. Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Oh, yeah. So, well,
It's all right if you don't necessarily have that, but I was just curious if
No,
you did.
I've read. So I'm not. Unfortunately, I'm not terribly well read, and I'm always like, I need to read more books, and I need to, you know, read. Like I've been really thinking about learning a lot more about philosophy. Because like it's really funny. Like I'll just like have these little epiphanies, and then my sister's like, "Oh yeah, well, I learned that in like philosophy 101 in college." Like, what are you talking about? Do you think this is something new? So 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 I feel like there's a bit of a hole, especially like my dad's really well read, and I've read Emerson in the past, but yeah, I don't think it's really something that I don't know if I just don't find time to read. I think that's it, really.
Okay, that's
So
fine. It's just like just the themes you talk about just strike a similar chord to the types of stuff that he talks about, or like the book Walden, Henry
oh
Thoreau.
yeah,
Yeah, like
okay.
those types of people, they really care about just like this human experience and connection with nature and stuff. And I don't know, that type of stuff really resonates with me, and I could see the similarity in your music. And I don't know, it's just like when I read that type, like I read Nature, I was listening to like you and people like Rukel. I don't know if you've ever listened to Rukel,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, but y'all definitely I don't know, very fit very well with that type of philosophy, in my
Oh,
opinion.
that's cool.
I'm wondering, would you ever be down to collaborate with artists ever? I suppose so.
Oh yeah. Actually, I am totally down to collaborate. I actually have collaborated with a good friend of mine. We kind of went down the like I taught him how to use Ableton basically. He's done like electronic music in the past and ambient stuff, and he's done even guitar stuff. But we just kind of like realized, oh, we should try making some music together. Actually, he wanted to make vaporwave. That's the funny thing. This is like 2.5 years ago. He was like, why don't we make vaporwave? I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. I was just like, I guess, okay, sure. Because I've never been like super into wanting to make like classic vaporwave, kind of slowed down stuff, or like
Yeah,
kind of reinterpreting pop music or um but it's just like I did have an idea for an album, but it's kind of like on the shelf. But no, we pretty much just that was my first real collaboration, I think. But of course that was in person. He'd come over to my house and like on the weekend, and we started like jamming, but then we were just like finding samples. We found this really interesting shortwave radio station. It's like an internet station, and it's like this site like in the Netherlands that they have like all the equipment for like shortwave radio, and you basically just stream from there, and you can adjust their and is it antenna? I don't know. So you can adjust the frequency, right, and scan the shortwave bands and find like programs broadcast all around the world from other
that sounds
countries.
awesome.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. And unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the site right now, but it's and we would find like samples, like really weird samples, and it was like really cool because I was really like bad quality, just like low bit rate and just kind of like really raw and grungy. And we'd find all these little samples, and we started writing these kind of vaporwave influenced stuff. So that stuff, I don't know if it's going to see the light of day. I haven't really worked with him in like a half a year, but because I'm just really busy with like my own stuff right now. But collaboration is definitely something that I would be totally down. There's some artists in the scene I have a lot of respect for, and when I'm ready and like I have more time available, it would be really cool to do.
All
Yeah.
right. I feel like that's a very cool way that y'all went about making music, just finding these weird samples. I always like that when people just find just these stuff that would just never see the light of day otherwise unless you had went looking for it. I feel like that's always a very interesting thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I mean that's the beauty of sampling. Like if you have the ear for it, I'm just like I said, I'm just a very detail oriented, and then with sound, I was just like I noticed like the most weird stuff, the most annoying stuff. Like, I don't know if you noticed this one thing. Like, I can tell when there's like a TV on, or like some electronics on in the house because like there's this high pitched whine and like half of my friends and my family, they don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know.
So it's like I notice all these very small detailed things, and I don't know if it's because of my interest in electronic music and sample based music, but I really like hearing snippets of sound and then using those in a musical context. It's just really
No,
fun to do.
that's awesome. I'm glad
Yeah.
you are that way because I'm very similar. I'm one of those types of people where I could hear a CRT from like a mile away. I'm like, oh,
Oh yeah.
I know
Oh
you
yeah.
got that turned on.
Yeah. Can you turn off the TV? I'm like trying to sleep here.
Yeah, definitely. People are like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about the giant whine coming from your
Oh yeah, and
bedroom.
like fluorescent lights. Fluorescent lights. I don't know if people notice, but like fluorescent lights have this really annoying hum.
They really do.
I mean, you tune it out, but like it's there. And I only know this, like, you realize this because when you go to an actual like really quiet place, like for example my dad's cabin, and it's so quiet there, and you just hear the wind through the trees. It's like you realize we're just inundated with sound all the time, especially in like cities and like more urban environments, you know. Um, so I noticed these really, really small things that a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And
Do,
it's kind of aggravating, but
do you ever
you
run
know.
into the situation where you're like you listen to like a favorite album of yours and then you start listening really close and you're like, wow, there's actually some really annoying sound in here.
Yeah, sometimes I'll notice like there's an issue with like a mastering or something, or like there's like some weird clipping, or like yeah, I noticed that, and it is annoying. Like that's the drawback of being really detail oriented, is like you'll notice like I don't know, some weird stuff, and I try not to let it affect me too much. But it's like one thing I was kind of like a few months ago, I was like kind of really annoyed. Like there was some album I was listening to, and I was like, why is this album so loud? Like you don't need to make this album this loud, because it's suffering. I can tell it's like distorting, and I don't think it's in a good way. Like I mean, that's my opinion, but I think like yeah, it's I'll notice these things about some recordings, and it is kind of annoying sometimes.
All right, gotcha. Because like I'm that way. I was listening to some Telepath album the other day, and I noticed in one of the songs there's this really high pitched noise in it that kind of sounds like a CRT or something. And I'm just like, how did somebody miss this? Like the song is almost unbearable now. But
Yeah. So yeah, I have the same thing. Actually, there's some Telepath. So I love Telepath. I think the vast majority of stuff he's released is incredible. It's actually kind of an influence, just that kind of like 2814 Telepath, that kind of dream catalog, the way they started going, was very inspiring, because I was really picking up the pace with my own music. And Telepath is pretty incredible. But I will agree that there's some, I don't know if it's like maybe some earlier albums, or maybe just the sample sources, but like sometimes it's a little hard on the ears. I think one of my favorite albums of his is the Dreamland. I think that's the name. I think it's Dreamland or something. They're all Japanese names, right? So,
yeah, I can't remember
but
them
this
all.
one is like, yeah. But I just remember being like listen to a lot of Telepath, this one week, and just be like, oh, my ears are kind of tired, because like this very kind of harsh. There's kind of a harsh frequencies in there that kind of fatiguing.
Yeah,
Uh,
honestly, yeah, it really is, and it's kind of weird because the music is very dreamy usually, but then when you start to
yeah.
really, really get into it, you're like, almost, oh wow, this is almost hard to listen to. Jeez.
Yeah, but it's just like, I just figure some of this stuff is pretty like, you know, and that album was, I think, more, it's like maybe 3 or 4 years old. So, um, his newer stuff is definitely really polished. And, I just chalk that up to like, people not being less experienced or whatever, or maybe not having the best monitoring equipment. Or, of course, I don't think anyone actually masters their, like actually like professionally masters their stuff in the vapor scene. It's pretty dear to yourself. So we don't really have the luxury of like spending big bucks on making it sound really good.
Yeah,
Um,
gotcha.
so it's kind of up to like the individual to try to get it to sound good.
All right, all right. I guess I want to ask just a few tiny more questions. For
Sure.
your next album, are you going to be releasing it on lots of different physical media?
So I have no idea about that, because I haven't even, I have some ideas about where I want to release it on, and like who I'm going to send it to. But that's not even, I'm not even at that point, it's more like I'm going to send this out, as a demo. It's pretty much a finished album, and we'll see where it goes from there. Honestly, I mean, it'd be nice to do physical release. I mean, I kind of have kind of a dream or a goal of mine is to like, it'd be great to put out a vinyl release at some point.
I would
But it's like,
love to.
but it's like, I'm not really holding my breath so much. It's like, all I can do is really just keep making music and keep trying to put it out. And, when it'll come,
Gotcha, man.
So yeah, I don't really have any plans right now because it's kind of like, I'm just finishing the album, gonna send it out, and then we'll go from there.
All right.
So
All right.
yeah.
Cool. Is there any more long-term stuff or you have planned or uh, also as like another side question, do you see any of this the scene not I know you're not necessarily part of like the vapor scene, but like just electronic music in general, do you see it evolving any or like a lot of this type of music becoming more mainstream and such maybe?
Yeah, I don't know in terms of like vapor. I mean, I don't really know where it's going honestly because it's like vaporwave. The more classic stuff is kind of um, I have actually kept up with that stuff like in the past like this past year.
Yeah, me either.
Um,
It's kind of hard
yeah, like
honestly.
yeah, there's so much stuff coming out. I don't know if you ever go on that Reddit. Like, I mean, I really don't try to read it anymore, but it's like there's just endless things, and of course like a lot of it's not really original or bringing anything new to the table, so it's like a lot of that classic style stuff I've kind of tuned out. But honestly, it's hard for me to say like where that's going because again, I'm not really up to date on
Gotcha.
what's
No,
going on.
I'm
Like
the same
I
way.
keep yeah, it's like I keep telling myself, I'm gonna check out some stuff. I'm gonna take some time to like check out some artists that I haven't, because I know there's some artists that I kind of like haven't really listened to their latest stuff, or like people say a lot of good things about certain artists that I haven't gotten around to. I mean, there's so much stuff out there,
Hmm.
right? So at some point, but I don't know, like in terms of like electronic music, I mean, I think it's more widely accepted than it's ever really been. I remember a time when it was, especially in the United States, like electronic music was a lot more niche, right? Because I think one thing I really kind of envied was, the UK and Europe in general, like they had this crazy burgeoning like techno and electro and like all these genres, and jungle and drum and bass. It all kind of like that was kind of popular, and we never really had that in the US. I think not until like maybe dubstep or EDM and stuff like that.
Yeah, only
Um,
around then did like electronic music really break into mainstream type
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. But I think it's more like, the influence of vaporwave and all this stuff. Like it's kind of like I feel like it's kind of bleeding into just mainstream culture in general. Like, um, I don't know. There's like popular producers and hip hop stuff that's like very electronic, production, very complex, very weird. Like if you were to go back, early 2000s and go and then come now and like see like what some of the popular stuff sounds like, it's like it's really different and it's kind of just a lot more accepted, So I'm totally down with that. I'm happy that more weird sounds are being more accepted. I mean, I don't know. I still kind of have tunnel vision because I really am into like really small scenes and really underground music that's not known by a lot of people. But I don't know. Sometimes I turn on the radio, I'm like, wow, that's kind of interesting. Like this is actually like weird and quirky, or the production, or
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
I don't.
I totally agree because like I listen to a lot of metal and I listen to a lot of vaporwave. Not very large genres and not very popular, but at the same time, I see certain aesthetic ideas and such start to leak out, and I'm like, huh, that's
Yeah,
kind of interesting. Like for instance, there's some black metal styled rapper. Forgot his name. It's like Ghost Man or something. I'm like, that's weird.
oh wow,
That's odd. And then I see like I know he's a huge producer, but I bet you he probably got his inspiration from is like Kanye. Like Kanye, he's
sure,
got this new album out with Kid Cudi called Kids See Ghost. And while
yeah, I
like
heard
I'm
about.
not saying it's like super vaporwave or anything, but it's got the Japanese on it. It's got the kind of a purplish haze to it. There's
Yeah,
certain motifs that I see that are starting to pop up in the mainstream from this type of stuff. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I'm totally like, I think that's the way forward with music in general, right? It's like it's just the blending of different styles and people absorbing new influences, and that's where the really exciting stuff comes from, you know? Like I don't know if my own stuff, like how original or whatever you want to say, but it's like I actually don't define my music like very strictly in genre, you know? I just don't go, well, I'm an ambient producer. No, I don't say that, you know? Like I like kind of like the vapor name. I know it's like some people like it, some people don't, but it's just kind of like it's kind of vague. I get that, but it's like I'm never one to really like these super specific subgenres and like, oh, but this is no, that's not, you know, that's not hypnagogic, right? That's classic style vaporwave. You know, it's like I don't know, like the vaporwave subreddit. You know, it's just like they get really anal about like their categorization of like this is vapor trap and this is dream vapor and this is like I'm not a big fan of like that super narrow those subgenres distinctions, you know. I'm kind of like more like it's more about like I guess the ideas or the feelings, you know, instead of like, well, this is a techno track, you know.
Yeah,
or
no,
this is a
I'm definitely with you on that. I really wish that there was a better public hub, not to diss the vaporwave subreddit, sorry guys if you're listening, but like I wish there were a better hub for public discussion, because it feels like the only way people get to interact with artists is actually probably just through Twitter. I
yeah,
think.
it seems like Twitter is the main thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not bad, but it's like sometimes I don't know, like I don't know, like um yeah, the scene seems a little bit fragmented, you know. You know, and there's certain people in certain parts of the scene that don't like others, and there's certain, you know, I don't vapor beef or whatever, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of unfortunate that Twitter is kind of like the only forum, really. I mean, yeah, okay, the subreddit, sure, but it's like my problem with the subreddit is it's like it's just way too much stuff. You know, everyone's posting every single little thing they did, and it's and of course there's like the floral shop vinyl thread, you know, at the top.
Oh Lord.
So.
Yeah, like see, that's the thing is like I'm just not one for that type of stuff. I just wish people could just be more open about the different stuff coming to the genre, not be so stuck on can you recommend me more Macintosh Plus? I'm just like come on, let's bridge.
I mean,
out
it's
a
all
little
out
bit.
there, you know. It's like yeah, it's like, and sometimes, you know, I think, you know, someone will post something on there and it's like, well, this isn't really vaporwave. Why are you posting it here? It's like, you know, there's a reason. It's like tangentially related, or it's like it's inspired or influenced. I mean, I just like the idea of like things don't have to be so narrow as people like to, you know, pigeonhole things. You know, you can kind of open up and you can be influenced by other things, and that's really how great art, great music is created. You know, just blending stuff and like reinventing stuff. And being influenced by other things, you know.
Gotcha, man.
That's just my take.
All right. Well, it's been a wonderful time having you here and discussing this type of stuff with you. I hope you've had a great time.
Yeah. It's been a great talking with you.
Yeah. I'm sorry to cut this short right now, but it seems like Skype is starting to get angry, and your voice is getting all robotic. Really? So I think probably now is a good time to put an end to it. But I would really like to very much appreciate you, because this has been such a wonderful opportunity, and all I could give you is a many thanks, and I hope that you can do great things in the future.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate it, man. I'm just so thrilled to have you out there in the world and love my stuff. You know, that's I'm not like trying to make a career out of this or anything. It's just stuff I like to do. I just love to create, and the fact that people out there that love it too. It just means a lot to me. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much, man. Thank you everybody for listening, and hope you'll have a wonderful night. Thank you for tuning in to another Digital Dream interview.